Hello, my name is Jeff Seaman, and it's an honor to be able to talk to you about some of the research we've been doing in online education in the United States. I'd like to, going to the first slide here, tell you a bit about what the presentation will cover. It's divided up into 5 sections. The first will be taking a look at the overall growth in enrollment that we've seen. We've been doing these surveys for a number of years, and we've been tracking how the number of students have been changing, and I can show you what those patterns are and have been in the United States. Second section, we're going to take a look at a little more detail at the various institutions, the higher ed institutions, what colleges and universities, and characteristics of those colleges and universities that are most involved in online. Then we'll move to looking at faculty. Are all faculty involved in online? How many of them? What are their attitudes towards online? And we'll take a look at a number of those things that we've covered in a series of our surveys. Then moving to an area where we're going to explore some of the myths of online. Those things that people believe are true, but actually have no justification, that when we actually examine the evidence, they turn out not to be the case. So we'll go through a series of those, which are in some ways misperceptions about what the characteristics of online are in the United States, and show you what evidence we have that refutes them. And then finally, take a look at some of those things which are not myths, that they are real issues that we have to look at in online education, and what the next steps are in trying to take a look at those. Moving to the next slide, a bit about who we are. My co-author, Eileen Allen, and myself are at the Babson Survey Research Group. We've been conducting these studies now for about 7 years, and have been supported in that effort by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. They've underwritten the basic research that we do. After we complete our research, do the analysis, write the reports, we then pass that completed report on to the Sloan Consortium, which publishes that and distributes it for free off of their website. So all of the reports I'll be talking about today and all the research that we've done to date is available as a free download from the Sloan Consortium website, and I urge you to download all of them in any you wish to. Finally, moving to the last of the preliminary pieces, which is, what do we mean by online? So going to the next slide, the course type definitions. When we first began this research, we didn't have a uniform definition. There was not one of what is an online course. So we were forced to create one, and we've kept it consistent through all the 7 years of our study so that we can measure the impact of changes over time. In our definition, an online course is one where at least 80% of the course material is delivered online. When we go and we quiz people and say, it turns out that virtually all of the online courses we're measuring have all of their content delivered online, but there are some where there's a small fraction, somewhere between 0 and 20%, which is delivered in some mechanism other than online, but they're counted in our definition we'll produce for our surveys of an online course. Okay, moving on, the most important thing is that we were asked to find out is how many students are studying online. There is extensive data collection in the United States by the Federal Department of Education, but one of the things they do not tally is delivery by numbers for particular delivery mechanisms. So they do not have a tally of the number of online courses or the number of online students or the number of faculty teaching online. So we were trying to do that to fill in this gap. So in the chart, you can see the number of students who were taking at least one online course in the fall of each of these 6 years. Goes from, in our first one in fall of 2002, it was 1.6 million. 6 years later, that number is now up to 3.94 million students. So these are measured in the fall of each year. So it's not, this is because the federal overall enrollment figures are also captured for the fall of each year, and it allows us to compare the online numbers to the total enrollment numbers. The total enrollment during this period has been between 17 and 18 million students, so that we're at the point where we went from just below 10% of all students who were taking at least one online course to the point now where over 20% of all students take at least one online course. This growth that we've seen has been consistent year to year to year, and one thing we've tried to do is ask each institutions when we go out each year, do they expect this growth to continue? We'll move on to the next slide, which is the most recent set of responses we've received from that. It is clear that the institutions do not see this growth slowing. Well over 3/4 of all of the institutions expect their online enrollments to continue to grow. A smaller group think that they're going to remain the same, and only a very small proportion think there will be any decrease in their online enrollments. The proportions we're seeing here have been consistent for each of the past 5 years that we've looked at, so there's been no change on the perceptions of the institution of what they consider to be their future growth potential for their particular online courses and programs. One thing we did ask, moving to the next slide, is who are your online students? Are they studying at an undergraduate level? Are they studying a graduate level? And what we've discovered is that the pattern of online students is a very close match to the pattern of all students. So virtually the same proportion of online students are studying at an undergraduate level as are the overall student body. Again, virtually the same proportion of online students are pursuing a graduate program compared to that same proportion of the total student body. This has been consistent through all of the years that we've been measuring, so that one of our conclusions is that the distribution of students in the online arena, those taking online courses, at least in this dimension about the level of study, is a very close match to those in the entire student body. Moving to the next slide, one of our questions was also, where do these students come from? When we first began our studies 7 years ago, there was a perception that maybe new online programs and courses would attract students from all over, and geography, being close to a particular institution, would no longer have any impact. That is not the case. When we look here, we see the majority of all students come from within 50 miles of the campus. That those who are enrolling in the online courses and programs of particular institutions are overwhelmingly local, coming from close physical proximity to the campus itself. This matches what we've seen for most institutions for their face-to-face programs, so that while we do have a draw for online courses and programs that extend beyond the local area, it is a minority of the online students who are coming from those areas, and the majority still come from within this close proximity of the campus. I'm going to pause now, next slide, just for some time for some questions and discussion, and then we'll move on to the next section.